Lesson 5. This week what we're going to do is take a look at something called power chords. Of the few chords that we have learned, we've learned sort of the main sort of open chords. They've all been down here, the bottom of your guitar. What we're going to do now in this lesson is we're going to start moving some of these chords up a little bit higher on your guitar. And we're going to learn something called a power chord. Power chord is a sort of a little shortened chord that has the same shape in different places on the guitar. So it's one chord shape that we're going to learn at different sort of spots on the guitar. And what this does is it teaches you that one chord shape, but this chord, as you move it around, it changes and it morphs and it plays, and you're basically creating a whole bunch of new chords. You would be able to play loads and loads of chords. The power chord is what we're doing is we're learning this little power chord. It's a shortened chord of a full bar chord. The next video is going to detail exactly what a power chord is, what it looks like, and all that sort of stuff. So that's what we're doing this week. We're looking at power chords. They're used in a lot of sort of rock songs and sort of punk and all that sort of stuff. So if you're antsy to get onto that sort of stuff, we need to know power chords. So let's take a look at power chords. Power chords. Right, before we look at the power chords, we just need to understand what they are and what they look like and how they work. We've learned about open chords. For example, we've learned a whole bunch of those chords. Now, before we get to the power chord, we learn what a bar chord is. We can take all of these chords and we can shift them higher up on the guitar, and you can play another chord. But the problem is you need to bar it off. You need to have one of these neck nuts shift up as well. Alright, so what we're going to do is we're going to take a look at the E major. I'm not using this finger, it's the same chord, but I'm using these fingers. What we've got is we've got this neck nut, that is barring it off. And that's what creates that open chord. And the way the guitar is tuned sort of makes these chords easier and more presentable and much easier to play. Now what happens is we can move this chord up, just say here. It doesn't sound that good. What we're going to do is use our finger as a bar. Alright, so it's kind of like a straight bar. And what this does is it just shifts this neck nut all the way up. Now, you don't have to do this right now. This is just getting the idea of how these things work. You're taking a chord and you're moving it around on your guitar. So it's the same shape chord, but it's moving around, and you can hear a noticeable difference. So you're playing the same chord, but when you play it much higher up with a bar, it creates a new chord because it's changing the pitch of this chord. This chord is sort of structured with a few notes and it's at a particular pitch. The tension on the string is creating this frequency, and we're getting that actual sound of an E major. Now what this does is it increases the pitch. So you're playing the same thing but at a higher pitch. It's a new chord. And you can move this sort of chord up and down on your guitar. And the same applies for, say, your A minor. We use these fingers and our bar moves around and it creates a new chord. The exact same shape, just moved around. Now you can do this with every sort of chord that you've learned. C major, D minor. All of these chords can be moved up, but you must have a bar, and that creates a new chord. These are called bar chords. They're hard, so we don't learn them right now. We take out a whole bunch of those notes and we simplify it. We only use 2, maybe 3 fingers with the same concept and the same principle of moving your chords around. You can find new chords, but play them much easier than playing a bar chord. You get a full bar chord, that's a full bar. Then you get half bars, which are just sort of half of the strings. And that we get onto much later. So now that brings us to the power chord. The power chord is just the first sort of 2 notes, maybe 3, depending on your song and how you want it to sound. So we're only playing the first, for our exercises, we're only playing the first 2 notes of that bar chord. So we're going to take the easiest chord we know, the E minor, and what we're actually going to do is we're going to play with our ring finger right up here, and we're not going to even worry about this note for now. The pinky will ultimately take that. So that note here, and we're playing the two first notes of that chord. And that is a 5 chord. So if you see E major, E minor in your notes and all that sort of stuff, now you're going to see things called a 5, E5. When you see the 5, it's a power chord. So we've still got our E sort of major and our E minor. We're now only playing the top 2 strings, the first 2 notes of that chord. And this is giving us our first power chord that we're learning. This finger is actually that open string. So go ahead and place that on here as well. It's pointless for now, but it's going to develop our fingers so that we can move this chord around and learn what its names are and all that sort of stuff. So the first chord, the E minor, just the first 2 notes, 5 chord, E5. Just like that. Now, what we're going to do is we're going to take our ring finger and we're going to shift it across to the 3rd fret. And this first finger shifts across as well to the 1st fret. So what we've done is we've taken this and we've shifted the whole thing across to the 1st fret and the 3rd fret. Now you need to practice stretching your fingers, getting them. It feels difficult at first, but you'll get the hang of it. You've got to push nice and tight to make sure there's lots of pressure, and it feels awkward at first. You can even just stretch your fingers out if you need to, physically like that. They might do this, they might not want to work. Yes, you will be able to get these. No, your fingers aren't not good enough. It just takes stretching and practice. So that is our first 5 chord, E5. And you hear immediately what that does, it just slightly brings it up. Alright, now this is no longer an E5, it's got a name. And if I play it here, they've all got names. It's the same shape, but this will be an E5, an F5, G5, an A5. Don't worry about that right now, we're just learning the shape. A couple of videos later, we'll learn how to find those names of those chords. So the first thing we're doing is just shifting them along like this. So what you need to do is stop the video and you need to practice your E5. Ring finger, first finger. There's only 2 fingers you're using. So you're using the ring finger and the first finger, and you're going to practice your E5. Then this shifts up a fret, so does this. Then it shifts up a fret, so does this. And you kind of keep that distance and allow your fingers to drag together like that. So let them go mannequin, let them go incredibly rigid so that they don't lose shape. You don't want to now suddenly not know where you're going or do 2 gaps instead of 1. So make sure that shape stays exactly the same all the way up. And just practice moving the chord and making sure that you get it nice and accurate. Your fingers need to learn how to memorize that and get a muscle memory for that, and that it just happens over time. So the more you do it, the more you take a break, the more you do it, the more you take a break, the better it's going to get. Your hands are going to get stronger, get a little bit of muscle memory, and you'll be able to play them. So that is what a power chord is. A power chord is a shortened bar chord, and a bar chord is moving your chords up. So we've taken the E minor and we've moved it down into an E5. So we're only playing the first 2 notes of our E minor. So our E minor, we've decided to ditch these fingers and to just use this finger here and we play only the top, only the first two notes. And then all we're doing is we're moving both fingers upper fret, up, up. There's always that gap in between these two fingers. And all you're going to do is just practice moving along like that. Do whatever you like. Strum them, don't strum them. Just get your fingers used to that shape. That is the power chord shape. So you need to practice that. You need to stop the video and you need to practice just learning that shape over and over and understand and rewatch the video and understand what's happening. We're taking a simple chord shape and we're moving around on the guitar. And what this is doing is it's taking that shape, that E for example, and it's manipulating it into another pitch, another name chord. So we take from an E5, just by moving it up and down, we can change it to an A5, we can change it to a B5, a G5, F5, etc, etc. So stop the video, lots of practice, and then once you're happy with that, you can move on to the next video where we start learning a little bit more in depth, and we start practicing them. And that is basically a power chord. Primary power chords. Right, now that we've kind of learned what a power chord is and the general idea of it, we're going to start playing some of them. We get primary and secondary power chords, and very simply and very basically, the primary ones are going to be the top two strings, and the secondary ones are going to be these next two strings. So the first chord we're going to focus on is the primary. First things first, we're going to take our ring finger and we're going to put it on the second fret, second thickest string. And this finger we are going to put over here, even though it makes no difference whether we have it there or not. That's the shape of the power chord, and that is our first one. This is an E5. Now I'm going to throw the names out whilst I do it, but in another video further on, we learn how to name them and all that sort of stuff. So don't stress about that too much. First chord, E5. You can now use your finger and your thumb together if you like to play that, kind of like you were holding a plectrum. And you're going to roughly try and aim to hit both of these two strings. If you hit another one by mistake, it's not a train smash, there's no worries. With time you'll get a lot more accurate. If you do that on an E, it happens to sound quite cool. Not so cool. So focus on getting those top two for the primary. So let's play that 4 times. And 1, 2, 3, 4 again. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. It's a very low, very deep sounding chord. That's exactly what we want. So now what we're going to do is we're going to find a new power chord. We're going to take that same shape and we're going to go 1, 2, 3, 3rd fret, 5th fret, nice and tight with your fingers, making sure you're sounding both of those notes. That may take some time. If you need more time, stop the video and practice those power chords again, moving them up and down the fretboard. So now that is a G, so this is actually a G5, a G5 power chord. Right, so let's play that together 4 times. 1, 2, 3, 4 again. 1, 2, 3, 4. Simple as that. Taking these two fingers, shifting them across and across again to the 5th fret. And 1, 2, 3, 4 again. 1, 2, 3, 4. We're then going to practice shifting back down to the 3rd fret again. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Alright, so here are your cheat notes. We're starting open. We're then going up to 3. We're then going up to 5, that's an A. And then we're going back down to 3. 0, 3, 5, 3, we play that, it would be pretty easy compared to what the other things we've learned in this course. So 0, 3 and 5, very easy. All you're doing now is you're getting your fingers accustomed and familiar to adding in that extra note over here. So you're playing something very basic, but you're adding in that finger and it becomes a little bit more tricky. So these two fingers need to kind of work together and operate together, and that's where the muscle memory part comes in. They want to be able to sort of slap down and play those notes like that. Okay, we weren't doing the first one, but there we have it. So that's what you want to kind of be able to do. So stop the video and practice just moving from 0 to 3 and to 5. Now you should have dots on your guitar to indicate. That makes it easier. You might have a dot on the 3rd in the middle of the fretboard here. You see those little dots. You might have one on your 3rd, you might not. Just depends on the make of the guitar. So if you don't have one on the 3rd, that first dot is your 5th. That's your 5th fret, so that's where you're going to end up. Those little dots are just little bookmarks so that you know whereabouts you are on the guitar. So 0, 3 and 5, 5 and 7, 3 and 5. That's what you want to do. And these are your primary power chords. They're on the top 2 strings. Now, we've done 3 to practice our power chords. The E, the G, and the A, very common. You can play these anywhere, but we're not going to practice playing them everywhere until we need to, because then we're just wasting time. So you can actually make up your own. You can practice strumming at the 8th fret, you can practice strumming at the 4th, and you can experiment. You're going to find certain ones sound good together and certain ones don't. That is a sort of a different story. That's learning about key and learning about chords and which chords fit together, which we don't have to worry about right now. All we need to do is just practice that primary shape, because we are going to learn some songs using these power chords, and in those songs you get to learn exactly which chords go with what. So for now it's just an exercise. My first exercise is the open 3rd fret and the 5th fret. You can almost do a variation of Smoke on the Water from here. As an example. Alright, so take your time, practice these power chords, practice strumming 4, 4, 4, 4, and just start piecing them together. Our first exercise is open, 3, and 5. So we're going to do that one last time together. We're going to strum 4, 4, 4, back down to the 3rd fret, 4. So, very slowly, starting at the E5. And 1, 2, 3, 4. Up to the 3rd fret and the 5th finger. 1, 2, 3, 4. Up to the 5th. 1, 2, 3, 4. Sliding back down to the 3rd. 1, 2, 3, 4. And then you start again at 0. 2, 3, 4. Up to the 3. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Back down to 3. Alright, so now you might find that I'm moving too fast and you can't keep up. That's where the stopping the video comes in, and practice over and over and over. Getting there as fast as you can so that when it comes to playing it's a lot easier. So you do need to stop the video and you need to practice that over and over and over so it's nice and comfortable. And then the trickiest part, because you're doing some big jumps for the first time, getting them sort of to fit in with the clock and our timing, so there's no gaps in between those chords, is going to be a little bit trickier, and that's where learning songs come into play, because you'll be able to recognize the song, recognize the tune, and you'll sort of be forced into moving a little bit faster. So practice nice and hard with those chords. Once you've finished, rejoin the video. I'm going to play that very slowly now, a couple of times in a row, and once you've practiced it may take a week, you don't know how long it's going to take, and then you can rejoin the video and you can practice trying to play along with me on those 4 chords. Alright, so here we go. 1, 2, 3, that's your goal. It'll take a while, so don't get frustrated. There's nothing wrong with you. You're playing fine and you'll get there. It just takes a lot of practice. And this is quite a tricky thing to learn on playing the guitar. So give it lots of time, give it lots of practice. And that is basically how to play primary power chords. Secondary power chords. Alright, secondary power chords, very much the same thing. There's only one slight small change. We're going to drop a string. And we need to be a little bit more accurate now with our right hand strumming and picking. We were doing them on the top string and the second string, or second thickest. We're now going to take both of these fingers and move them down. So we're not playing this top string, we're playing this string, this string. See how the finger has dropped. We've played an E minor or an E major as a power chord. Now we're doing an A minor or an A major as a power chord. We're only playing the top two strings, the first two notes of that chord, giving us our 5 chord. Alright, so on your third thickest, at the second fret, that's where we are. First finger behind the neck nut, and on our right hand, playing these two strings. Now, ultimately, if you're strumming it, you're not aiming so precise, but you need to try and skip the string, which we'll get onto now. So, that's our first chord. That is an A5. Let's do that 4 times. 1, 2, 3, 4. Then we're going to do exactly the same. We're going to shift up to the 3rd and the 5th. So it's exactly the same as your primary, except secondary. It's on the next chord, next strings. This finger and this finger, 3rd and 5th. Now, here's the catch. This first finger here, without bending the string too much, you see that bend, you don't want to do that because then it goes out of tune a bit. It happens a little bit, but we don't want to exaggerate that. When we place our finger on the string, we want the tip of our finger to gently, gently, gently touch the top of the string to mute it out. Now this is a much finer point. It's quite tricky to do in the beginning, so we don't worry about it too much. Ultimately, this finger touches that top of, it just touches up underneath this string and gently mutes it out. So now when it comes to strumming, we don't have to be as accurate because we can hit the string, it's muted so you don't hear it. If I wasn't muting it with that finger, that's what you would hear, and you don't particularly want that. Alright, so back down to the A minor. We're only playing these 2 notes, and we're going to do that 4 times in a row. 1, 2, 3, 4. We're then sliding up 2 with this finger, and your first finger is coming in, 3 and 5. Push it nice and tight, trying to just gently touch that string. So your finger can get a little bit lazy. It's a little bit lazy and it's not so upright, and you sort of arch it down a little bit and you bend it, then that touches that a lot easier. Once you've got that, 1, 2, 3, 4. Then we're going to slide up 2 more frets to the 5th fret. 1, 2, 3, 4. And then we slide back down 2, keeping our shape. And 1, 2, 3. This is an A, a C, and a D. Right, and you don't have to worry too much about memorizing those. If you do, that's great, because we're going to learn about that in a later video. Alright, so now stop the video and practice those chords. Practice shifting, practice moving around. You can also practice just going one fret at a time, slowly getting used to it. And then we're playing open, 3rd fret, 5th fret. The same with the primary and the secondary, we're doing exactly the same so that it's easier to remember. Now there's lots more chords, and depending on which chords you put together is going to create different songs and different sounds, which we get onto later on as well. So for now, what we want to practice is just moving around that same power chord shape in a secondary sort of position. So not on your thickest string, they come down one string, because you can do them up here and you can do them down here. Alright. So once you've stopped the video, once you've practiced that over and over and over, we are going to try and play along together. Now, as I said in the primary video, this takes a lot of time, a lot of practice. So don't stress out if you haven't got it straight away. Just keep practicing, and eventually you'll get a lot more comfortable and better with it. Also, as a side note, in the next video, primary and secondary, we start joining these top power chords and the one down, we start joining those together, and then it becomes a lot easier to play along. And then with the exercises we've got, it'll be even easier. So this is actually a little bit sort of trickier than the sort of exercises that will follow. Alright, so once you've got all of that and you've practiced nice and hard, we're going to play these 4 chords together. 3rd fret, 5th fret, 3rd fret, and open. Alright, nice and slow, 4 counts each. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 'Alright, there we have it. That is how to sort of play your secondary chord. Again, it takes lots of practice. It's the same sort of setup as the primary power chords, so you get to practice them over and over and over. Practice changing places on the guitar, play them anywhere you like, and then practice strumming 1, 2, 3, 4. Move as quick as you can onto the next one. 1, 2, 3, 4, and just slowly get through those, and just keep practicing over and over and over. The next videos, we're going to join the two, the primary and the secondary together. We're going to do a few exercises to try and get that playing a lot sort of smoother and better. And that is basically how to play secondary power chords. Primary and secondary power chords. Basically, what we're going to do now is add everything we've learnt together. We're going to be playing our primary, then a secondary, primary, secondary, primary, secondary. And we're going to try and add those together. We're going to try and strum them a little bit. Alright, so first thing we're going to do is tackle that E5. There it is. Then we're going to bring our fingers down and we play the A5. Just like that. So that's all you're doing really. Now the important part is keeping this finger behind the neck nut and moving both of these fingers down, including this one. Because what it's doing is it's memorizing the shape and it's learning the shape, and then you're moving around. So you're actually playing power chord to power chord, and you get to feel that. You get to feel that sort of chord change, and your hand gets comfortable with that. So even though it's such a small change, mentally you are acknowledging that you can play power chords. So when it comes to shifting up a little bit, it's not as daunting and it becomes a little bit easier because you can already do it. So that's a very important, very subtle thing I want you to practice. It's just making sure that you move this finger as well. Alright, so what we're going to do is 4 strums for the E5, and then 4 strums for the A5. Right, and 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. That's all we have to do. Let's do it again. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2. 1. So stop the video and practice doing just that. Just practice moving between those 2 chords until they become a lot easier and a lot more comfortable. Once you've done that, we're on to our second set of chords, which is going to be the G primary. We're going to play a power chord on the 3rd and 5th primary, right up on top. And then what we're going to do is move these fingers down, like we did over here. We're going to take these 2 fingers and we're just going to lift them, release the pressure a bit, lift them up a tiny bit and just move them down and then press again. So you don't want to take your hand right away and put it back on and right away and put it back on. You want to try and sort of retain that shape and use as little movement as possible. Alright, so you practice just changing between those 2. Primary, secondary, primary, secondary. And slowly as you practice this and as you practice all the other power chords, you develop some more muscle memory and it becomes a lot easier. Alright, so all we've got left to do now is to strum them. 4 strums each, 4 counts. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, more time. That's all you have to do. Your hands kind of feel like they're smudging from one chord to another, and that's cool for now. So you just practice sort of smudging your hands down, just so you can get that nice and comfortable and realize you're not moving a lot. Alright, those first exercises are isolated on their own. Your hands shifting up and down the fretboard quite a lot, and that's fairly tricky. But moving from primary to a secondary, especially if they're so close together, it's a lot easier. Alright, stop the video, practice that over and over and over. And then the last part will be fairly easy as well, because we're going to do exactly the same. At the 5th fret, 5 and 7, primary, secondary, primary, secondary. We're going to do 4 strums each, so make sure you're at 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 and 7 with your gap nice and tight. And 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2 hands a break, they get nice and tired with playing these power chords. Your hand can often cramp and your thumb starts feeling like it's going to break off. That's also natural, you just need to develop a lot stronger grip. What you can do now is you can practice that all over the guitar. You can do it anywhere you like. Just shift from primary to secondary, anywhere you like. Once you've done that, we're going to put all of those together. We're going to play the E5 to the A5, the G to the C, the A to the D, and then back down to the G and the C. So we're going 0, 0, 3, 3, 5, 5, 3, 3, alternating between primary and secondary. Alright, so once you feel comfortable and confident with that, follow along back at this point of the video, and I'm going to go through this very slowly a couple of times. Alright, starting with our first one. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. We then go all the way up to 3 on the top string, add in that extra finger, 3 and 5, primary, 1, 2, 3, 4, drop down, 1, 2, 4, back up and across to the 5th fret, there should be a dot, and the 7th fret, primary, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. Then as you come back up to the primary and you shift back down to the 3rd and the 5th. 1, 2, 3, 4, and then down, 2, 3. Then you're shifting back up and you're going back down to the E and you're starting again. Alright, so stop the video, practice that on your own over and over and over. Once you're comfortable with all of that, then you can do the last part of this where I'm just going to play that all the way through fairly slowly, and then you get to try and aim towards playing along with me. Alright, here we go. And 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, one more time. And there we have it. That is your primary and your secondary mixed together, and you're practicing changing strings and moving around the guitar. This won't take quick, it's going to take a lot of practice and a lot of time, so don't get too frustrated. Incorporate it in amongst all the other things you're practicing and learning, and let that develop with a bit of time. Let that just do its own thing slowly. And as I said, later on in the term we'll get a song using just power chords, and it'll start making a lot more sense. It'll start getting a lot more easy. Alright, and that is basically primary and secondary power chords. Notes on the fretboard. Right, the last part that we need to learn and understand are where the notes are on our strings and on our fretboard. We need to know this so that we can understand which chords we're playing and be able to find out what their names are, basically. So we know that the first chord we did was an E5, then we went down to D5, not D5, A5, and now we want to know what these ones are. So the way we do that, take a look at the diagram. We've got all the notes on the fretboard drawn out. The first note is this string here, the E. That is an E note. First fret, F. We then skip this one, we'll come back to it. Third one is a G. 5 is A, B, 7, 8 is C, 10 is D, and 12 is E again. So, we know where our notes are. What you're going to do is you're going to learn this over time. Don't rush, don't try and cram it all into your brain. Let it commit to long-term memory, and the way you do that is just by constantly sort of being reminded of that. So we need to just go over where these notes are briefly, and you need to be able to play those. Those are your natural notes. Those are your A, B, C, D, E, F, G, and then it's starting at A, and it carries on A, B, C, D, E, F, G, A, B, C, D, E, F, G, and it keeps going. So once we know where those are, we can now figure out the names of our first chords, our primary chords. This finger here, your first finger in a 5-chord shape. This note here, no matter where it is, and you've got your power chord, is telling you the name of your chord. It's the root note of this chord. And that, in the open position, is an E5. If we slide this whole thing up to the first fret, we're now on 1 and 3. That number 1 is an F, so it's F5. We go up to G, G5, A5, and you go through all of your notes and you learn them slowly. So you want to be able to go, I'm going to play an A5 primary. So you're going to go 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. You go up to the 5th fret, you put your finger there, and then you play your power chord shape. You're now playing an A5. If we decide we want to play a B5, we go up to the 7th fret, which is over here, and we play our power chord B5. So now what we've got is when you learn your songs and it tells you, let's play E5, A5, G5, C5. All you've got to do is find where that note is and play a power chord, and you'll be able to play that sort of progression of chords. Right, and that is on the top string, all your natural notes. So again, take some time to just don't try and cram it all at once. It should, over the next month or two, start getting ingrained into your head. Alright, then what we're going to do is we're going to go on to the next string for our secondary. And we notice that note is an A, B, C, D, E, F, G, and A. Leaving out the little blank spots for now, we go to all the natural notes. Third open string, 2nd fret is B, 3rd fret is C, 5th D, 7th E, 8 F, 10 is a G, and then 12 is back up to your A. So the same thing applies for that. You play an A5 secondary, then if you go all the way up to say the 5th fret, this note here is telling you you're playing a D power chord, D5, a C5, and etc, and so forth. So you need to just practice with that sheet, make sure it's printed out in front of you, and just practice going up to say the 10th fret and doing a secondary chord, playing the power chord and then figuring out the name of that chord. And just move around and practice going from one chord to another, just at complete random, and you'll slowly get used to where those are. You'll also notice then in the primary and secondary together, when we played all of those chords able to figure out those chords, what their names are now. You'll be able to figure all of that sort of stuff out. You'll be able to even just write it down. They'll be in the notes, but you can make a more sort of educated understanding of what those notes are and what those chords are. Right, so those are all your natural notes. Now if you look at the next diagram, you've got your natural note, which is sort of 2 lines and then 2 lines going across diagonally. That is the sign for natural. It's not too important right now, but that is a natural sign. So all of these notes that we're playing are natural notes. You then got the next one, so it looks like a hashtag. It is a hashtag. It is a sharp. Alright, so every time you see hashtag, you got to think sharp. We'll find those on the guitar now. Then the next one is a sort of skewed up B, and that is a flat. So you've got natural, sharp, and flat. We know where all the natural notes are now. We just need to figure out where the sharps and flats are and what they are. If you're asked to sharp something in music, or on the guitar specifically, you're going to go up a fret, you're going to go higher. You're literally going to climb higher on the fretboard. If you see the little B, the flat, you're going to move backwards on the fretboard. So you're going to go up for sharp, and flat goes back down. Right, so let's look at that with our notes on the fretboard. We've got our E, then we've got our F. Now you'll notice there's a sharp sign here, the hashtag, as well as a flat sign in the same fret, in the 2nd fret. This is a sharp and a flat. Then you'll notice you go to the G, then you've got a sharp and a flat. A, sharp and a flat. And you'll find them all over and you'll be able to sort of isolate where those are. So when you're practicing, the first step, E, F, sharp and flat, G, sharp and flat, A, sharp and flat, and you carry on all the way through. All of your primary notes, all of your secondary as well. And it helps to play the note without the chord even. Play the note and just to call it out for what it is. That way you make a sort of better mental connection. So you've got now E, F, sharp and flat, G, sharp and flat, all the way through. The sharp and flat still need a name. They still need a letter. And there's one way to figure that out. You've got your E, you've got your F. It's nestled in between your F and your G. So you've got an F sharp and a G flat. So your F sharp and your G flat are actually the same note. They're that 2nd fret. E, F, F sharp, or G flat. So this is an F sharp or a G flat. Alright. So you may need to stop the video, go over that again, understand that fully. You've got an E, F, next note is an F sharp, a G flat. So F, when you're sharping, you're going up. So you go F sharp and G flat. They're called the same thing. And there's different reasons why. We're not going to get into that right now. We'll get onto that later in the year. For now, you got to know that a sharp and a flat are going to be one note. It's going to be going up and going down on the fretboard. Alright, so if we are going to play an F sharp power chord, we find the E, F, F sharp, and we play our power chord shape. That is an F sharp power chord, an F sharp 5. That is your F sharp. It is also your G flat. That is a G flat 5. So you've got F sharp 5, G flat 5, the exact same chord, the exact same note. As I said, don't worry about that for now. Get onto it later in the year. For now, you just want to sort of be able to find all of the chords on your guitar, all of the power chords, and be able to play power chords. So you're going to go through and you're going to practice choosing a fret at random. So over here, 5, 6, 7, 8. That is your C, your C5. Some of them don't have sharps and flats. Your E and your F, there's no sharp or flat in between. Your B and your C, there's no sharp or flat in between. We get onto that later in the year as well. So you can go to, say, the 9th fret, all the way up here, and you hold a power chord. Then you go to yourself, I'm on the 9th fret. This finger here is telling me the name of it. It's the root note. 9th fret is C sharp or D flat. C sharp or D flat. C sharp 5 or D flat 5. Then we're going to go down to the 4th fret. It's either a G sharp 5 or an A flat 5. And the very same thing applies as your secondary chords. First finger indicating the name of the chord. If we go to the 1st fret, we're on A sharp power chord, or a B flat. So this is your B flat. It's also your A sharp. Alright, so notes on the fretboard, it's showing you where the notes are, showing you the natural, the sharp and the flat. And then all you're doing is you're going to random spots to learn these notes, and you're holding the power chord and you're figuring out its name. In the next video, we're going to go over a couple of exercises, a couple of progressions, chords that go together, and we'll look at that and we'll be able to learn which ones sound better together. You know, if you start playing random chords, it's going to sound random. So we'll look at that in the next video. Stop the video, go through all of that over and over and over, and just get a nice understanding. We're figuring out the names of these chords. There's natural, sharps and flats, and we're just figuring out, we're giving the same chord, the power chord, moved around, we're figuring out its name. And that is basically notes on the fretboard. Exercises. Right, in this last video we get to put together all that we've learned, and we get to practice some songs basically. These 3 exercises are chords that are taken from songs. The first exercise we're going to do, there's about 1 million songs that these chords are played in. So it's great practice for us. Make sure you've printed your tabs for the exercises and you found all of those chords. I've written them out. E5, G5, etc. with a little S or a P underneath it for primary and secondary. So find the chords first and then come straight to this video, practice those chords as well, and then come to this video and try and follow along. Right, the first exercise is E5, then it's G5, then it's D5, a secondary, and A5, secondary. And all you need to do is play each chord 4 times, 4 strums per chord, 4 counts, and then just keep repeating that process over and over. Right, so here's the first exercise. We're going to play it a couple times in a row. Will look like after a lot of practice. Figure the chords out, practice them, learn from your diagrams, and then practice along with me. Second exercise we're going to get straight to, and this is preparation for a song later in our term. It's the chords for the main part of Smells Like Teen Spirit by Nirvana. So the first chord is an F primary. We then drop down and we go to A sharp secondary. Then up at the top, primary, 4th fret, that is our G sharp, and then down 1 to secondary, C sharp. And that we can just practice doing 4 counts for each chord. And that set of chords. That in the song will sound like. Right, so don't let that scare you. That's where we're going to get to. And in the last exercises from Pixies, we're going to start with the E5. Then we're going to go to a secondary C sharp, 4th fret. Then we go up 1 to the G sharp and across 1 to the A. 4 times for each chord. And 1. Exercise. Alright, so we've got 3 exercises, 3 songs basically, that you've got to practice over and over and over and over. It takes a hang of a lot of time to get those comfortable and to get good at those. So just keep practicing, go nice and slow. For the sort of exercises, find all the chords first before you even start strumming, and do that for a while. And then use this video as a reference to where you need to get. Playing along with me will take some time, so don't stress about that. And if you can get that in a month or 2, then that's great. Then you're actually doing really well. So lots of practice, and that is basically exercises. And there we have it. That was lesson 5, all about power chords. And this lesson was quite a jump. You all of a sudden are playing all over the guitar, and you're moving up the neck, and you're doing these chords, and they're quite tricky. So give this lesson loads and loads and loads of time. It's something that you develop over time. So if you can't get it in a week, don't stress too much. It should take you a while. So it's something for you to keep practicing and keep going at. Also, make sure you stop the video as often as you can, as you like, and just practice all these things without me, and then rejoin the video and carry on, and just keep repeating that process and do it nice and slowly, and eventually you'll get there. Alright, so if you need any questions, comments or queries, you can find us on Facebook. Thanks for watching the video, and we'll see you in lesson 6.